There's no time on this show tonight, even with a Pistons 17-point lead on Philadelphia with under a minute to play. The rally cry tonight, and Barton Capellian is next to me tonight here on ESPN Detroit at 8 o'clock. 1-8, baby. That's the rally cry, 1-8. But on the phone with us now is a guy who Detroit Lions fans should remember very well, and you can bring him in right now, Dennis McKinnon, because, Dennis, I got to tell you that growing up in Chicago, and I'm not kidding you here, in 1985, my mom was a huge Bears fan, still is to this day, was all about the Super Bowl and the shuffle and going to New Orleans. But let me tell you something, she loved number 85. So you got my mom in your back pocket anytime you want, fella.
That is wonderful to hear, and to all our wonderful Detroit fans, or should I say, whenever the Bears played in Detroit, there were more Bear fans than Lion fans. And you know what? We're almost planning on that for Green Bay this weekend with firearm hunting season starting tomorrow. We may have that same situation at Ford Field. Back, of course, when you played, it was at the Silverdome, but at Ford Field. How you doing? You all right? Enjoying retirement.
Well, you know, Dennis, if you don't know, played 7 years in the NFL. Most of them with the Chicago Bears. Actually finished with the Dallas Cowboys. Some people might forget that. The great year of 85, like a quarter of your catches went for touchdowns. I mean, you had as much to do with that Super Bowl as pretty much anybody back then. What are you doing now?
Well, I mean, I have my own marketing company, but right now I'm predominantly, working with Coach Dick over at Gridiron Greats and doing what we can to help players around the league who are not doing well. And, as they say, I've always been a soldier, and the rally call comes out. We have so many players who are not tied to free agency, who financially not doing well, and I think the biggest issue right now with the concussion syndrome that the National Football League is trying to clean up. But there are a lot of players who came before all this love fest that the league is giving, and they have irreparable damage that we're trying to figure out how we can help. And
Dennis, I know that near and dear to your heart, obviously, was what happened with Dave Duerson, a former Bear, and and Junior Seau as well, brought a lot of what people are now seeing as the recognition towards what you're talking about to the sport and to probably the future of how the NFL will handle these situations.
Well, Dave and I came in together in 1983. And actually, for 6 years, for all away flights, we sat next to each other on the plane. I'm the godfather of his kids. He was my best friend, so it was shocking. We're the same age, and even when the lights are bright and you're doing tremendously well, you never know when the lights go off what's going on. And to feel that he felt like he felt alone and he couldn't help or couldn't ask anybody for help, it's trying, because those are questions we can never get answers to. And I told myself that I would not allow myself to be in a situation where I can help and I do nothing. And I think Dave Duerson, Junior Seau are kind of at the top of the list based on name recognition. But I think it's just a ticking time bomb in regards to there's so many players who are in similar situations that the rally cry goes out. And I think we have a tremendous obligation from the National Football League to help our very own.
Dennis McKinnon, former Chicago Bear wide receiver, punt returner extraordinaire, former Dallas Cowboy, too, joining us on Mark the Man Wilson, ESPN Detroit. Do you think now, Dennis, that they have gotten the message that the rest of the league is understanding what you and Mike Ditka, like you said, and everybody else is trying to do to not just bring awareness, but to really make it so that we don't have to go through what we went through with Duerson and Seau, ever again, hopefully?
Well, I think you look at it two ways. You got parents now who are talking about their kids about not playing football. That's something the National Football League cannot afford. And secondly, you have a situation with a class action suit where there are thousands of players who collectively are trying to figure out a way that their lives can be better by bringing awareness to a situation that in a lot of ways was known, nothing done about. Sometimes until something drastic happens in terms of suicide, nobody acts. And we don't want to point the finger at anybody. We all played the game because it was our dream. And a lot of things that don't go well during that point, but, we wouldn't trade it for anything. But I think that once you walk off that field for the last time, the league that you play for, you gave your heart and soul to, should just not forget about you. So we want to make sure that beacon of light still shines on these players, even in retirement life. and that we have an opportunity to stay in contact with them, and we can help them, then we need to do that.
Is it kind of a catch-22? We just had a weekend, Dennis, where three of the most high-profile quarterbacks in the league all went out with concussions. Alex Smith, Michael Vick, and, of course, your very own Chicago Bear, Jay Cutler. I mean, it happens consistently. We're in a situation here in Detroit where Javid Best had concussions coming in from the University of Cal Berkeley, and we all knew it going in, and then he has a couple of major ones in the NFL and may never play again. Here's a young guy who just wants to get back on the field but can't. What to do? I mean, is there really anything that can be done short of ending the football as we know it? What can you do?
Well, it's amazing all the protocols that have been put in place, and you have more players now getting concussion syndrome, which is interesting to me. And it tells you that for decades, when players had those symptoms, there was never this kind of medical attention. Never.
No, it was smelling salts, Dennis. You went down, they put it under your nose, whether you were in pee-wee football, high school, it didn't matter. I remember going through it. Hey, get back in the game, buddy. If you missed a couple of plays, you were looked at as a sissy or wimpy.
So players now know that they don't have to go back in. If the symptoms are there, they're not going to play. And, those safeguards, I wish would have been put in place, like I said, decades ago, but they were not. So there are a lot of players who will never recover from the injuries that they had during their playing days. And I think we have an obligation to make the transition better for them, to be able to diagnose what's going on and seeing how we can treat. But I think the National Football League understands that, if the core of your program stops playing, in terms of parents not allowing their kids to play football, the pendulum will swing dramatically away from the National Football League, which is sat on top of Mount, we call it Mount Rushmore, by themselves for a very long time. And the concern is, it's frightening. And the thing about it doesn't matter how big or how fast you are. The brain is a very sensitive instrument. And if it does not function properly, bad things happen.
Big time. Hey, Dennis, I want to ask you, what about your affiliation with Rudolph Foods and Southern Recipe pork rinds? I got a big box of pork rinds sent to me, and I said, I'm in heaven now. I think my life has been completed. First of all, how did you get involved with them? And I got to know about Pork Rind Appreciation Day, if it's the last thing I do.
The thing about it is, this is the second year they've reached out and assisted the foundation. I think last year was Wounded Warriors, and this year's Gridiron Greats. And Rudolph Foods is the world's largest producer of pork rinds, which is fabulous, because I'm a Southern kid from Georgia. I love my pork.
From Quitman, Georgia, right, Dennis?
Valdosta, Quitman, Georgia.
Right. I don't even have to. I can. Barton can attest. I'm not even looking at that. I remember you being from Quitman, Georgia.
Quitman, Georgia, and so. My parents, my grandparents owned a farm. Had like 700 acres, and we had a slaughterhouse. So everything in the morning was fresh. So I know about the swine, and but there's not a southern or urban family that I know that does not like to barbecue and have pork rinds. So it's kind of a perfect fit, and what they're doing is bringing tremendous awareness to what we're doing at Gridiron Greats. And Pork Rind Appreciation Day happens to always be on Super Bowl Sunday, and and what they will be able to do is assist us around the country in promoting Gridiron Greats and what we're doing to help players in need around the country. And I am so thankful to be with Gridiron Greats, and more importantly, to have their affiliation with Rudolph. And I'm excited about it because I get to eat product all day.
Dennis, this is Vartan.
Love me some pork rinds.
Right, who doesn't?
Yeah, Dennis, this is Vartan. For our listeners who might not be familiar with Gridiron Greats, they have an annual event, Mike Ditka's event, that's played in the southwest corner of Michigan. I had the opportunity to participate a few years ago. I got to tell you, it was an outstanding day of golf. It was a great program. Ditka does a heck of a job with that, and they raise a lot of money for Gridiron Greats. It was so if any of our listeners ever have an opportunity they come across it and they get an invite to play in the outing, don't say no, because it's a good one.
And Dennis, Coach has really been all on this too.
Well, yeah, when you think about it, Coach has that annual event, his golf tournament, mostly Hall of Famers. A lot of them are walking with a cane, walking with a limp, most of them needing assistance, and it's really, those are the guys whose names hang in the Ring of Honor in almost every city. There's an NFL brand.
Yeah,
and those are guys who paved the way for the game. And if they are in that kind of physical state at this point, they are the best voices to bring awareness of what's going on with our players. And Coach has become a champion for the cause.
Talking about Hall of Famers, I had the opportunity to play with Merlin Olsen. What a great player he
was. Mr. Little House on the Prairie.
Yeah, what a
yes,
great,
indeed.
Yeah, and he was having trouble with his knees at the time, but he was still a joy to be around. It was an honor for me to play with him.
Hey, Dennis, Pork Rind Appreciation Day, as you said, is Super Bowl Sunday.
February 3rd.
And people should understand that part of the proceeds of the Southern Recipe products will support the organization's assistance fund. And I just want to tell people, you can go to RudolphFoods.com, but there's some stuff you can win, too. And there's all sorts of prizes. There's a new 50-inch plasma TV. You can you win a party from Southern Recipe, snacks.
Yes, there's a myriad of things that Rudolph Foods is providing. And like I said, 10 cents of every bag sold through Super Bowl Sunday, I believe, goes to Gridiron Greats, and I can't thank them enough for assisting us and giving us an opportunity to tell our story around the country.
Well, I'll be mentioning this a lot more, Dennis. You tell anybody, believe me, this is not a one-shot wonder here. We'll be doing this. We got a long way to go, and she sent me a lot of pork rinds, so I'm good to go on those. and BMO, yes, you're going to get yours, so stop bugging me. They're at the other office. But again, it's RudolphFoods.com to get you all the information you need. You can also go to RudolphFoods.com/brands/Southern Recipe, and you'll see everything you need to know. Now, Dennis, I got to know from you, since we got the Bears and Packers coming up, what do you think about this little football team after last year, our little Detroit Lions? Are you surprised that they're struggling like they have after going to the postseason for the first time since, I think you were a player. Oh, no, I'm sorry, it was 99. Pretty close.
It's still fool's gold. They had an emergence last year, and everybody knows about Megatron and the infamous not followed through catch in Soldier Field that turned their season around. But in this game, if you cannot run the ball, you can't really beat most people. I don't care how great your skilled guys are. You still got to run the football. And with Jarvis Best being out for the year, and it's a little difficult. But they're not a well-coached team. Way too many penalties, way too much showboating, and I see that from the defensive side of the ball. They're not coached well.
Jim Schwartz, ladies and gentlemen, from Dennis McKinnon right there. I like that.
To me, fundamentals. As long as you have the fundamentals, you always can put yourself in a position to win every week. But when you just make just dumb penalties on a consistent basis, that does not help anybody. And the Lions will always be the Lions until they can get the fundamentals down. They've got some great skill on the offensive side of the ball. And defensively, everybody thought this would be the year that their front four would be dominant. Have not been.
Last final thing for you. Are you still sticking, or were you sticking with your Chicago Bears as maybe a participant in the, I will now call it the Pork Rind Super Bowl Sunday?
Well,
did we see a preview of that with Houston and Chicago just this past weekend?
It's a possibility. AFC is loaded. I mean, for me, if the stars align, would it be better, for the Bears to return to New Orleans when we won Super Bowl 20? I don't know if I can get that lucky. But I think that if we can stay healthy and we can protect Jay, we have as good a shot as anybody. I think the Giants are an admiration because it's very rare that a team can go 9-7 consecutively and still win the Super Bowl. You get hot at the right time, but there are some very good teams, but there are more bad teams in the National Football League, and we'll just hope that the best teams have a chance to, as they say, line up to get to New Orleans. And I'm excited about the second half of the season.
Dennis, I really appreciate it. You're terrific for coming on. Gridiron Greats is a great cause, and especially you sharing that moment about you and Dave Dewerson. I think it's fantastic as well. And good luck with you, and I hope to talk to you again soon.
God bless, and as they say, I look forward to talking to you again, and I wish the best for the Lions and your Pistons. I know that I know there's a lot of praying going on in Detroit.
Well, 18-point lead at the half, Dennis. We might get win number 1 around here.
1-8 would be great.
Yeah, 1-8. There, he's coined the phrase. RudolphFoods.com again. Dennis, thank you so much.
Thanks so much, Mark.
All right, Dennis McKinnon joining us on Mark the Man Wilson on ESPN Detroit, and looks like we've got a new topic.
Yes.
The Lions are not a well-coached team.
Was that a new topic or a new old topic?
Dennis McKinnon has set the price, baby.
Yeah.
What do you call it? Fool's gold?
Yeah, fool's gold. That was pretty good. He was up front with that information, wasn't he? But you know what? When you think about it, we all
might be
that.
right on. And maybe it's stuff we don't talk about.
It's about discipline. It's about just doing the basics right. And then that's all coaches ever talk about, whether it's basketball, baseball, golf, hockey. You got to get the fundamentals right. I mean,